Now let's head outside and have a look at some of the larger caliber weapons made for the large ships. Now first off, and I'm not doing these in any particular order, is the Railgun by Laser Maniac. Now this thing looks how a railgun, I could imagine a railgun actually looking like this. We've got these sort of old school power generators or power boxes on the sides, we've got some vents, and we have a trapdoor at the back that I've actually powered into a cell where it's going to be getting its ammunition, and we've got the same on the other side. We've got these things that look like they could possibly one day be lights, and maybe at different charges states as it's reloading they'll light up in a different colour, but for now I'll just show you its function. And here is its little depleted uranium sort of solid shot round that it fires, and it is quite devastating on a target. Now let's hop out and let's select the weapon up itself by hitting 1. You can see the lasers appeared on the target, and we're going to fire a single shot, and as you can see, there it goes. Now I'm going to actually show you what happens when we look at here, but first off you can see the damage. It's damaged 1 layer of heavy armor, and it has a very long reload time, and it should do for the sort of damage it deals out. And watch this little zapper laser, very nice. Let's delete that light armor target and move up to the big league and try to hit a heavy armored target. Once again, aim at the center and let it reload and fire. So we've penetrated 1 heavy layer of armor and we broke into a second. Let's delete that now and have a look at this laser as it pulses across the sky. Now unlike some other weapons, this has a very long range capability, so it is better for them long range skirmishes between heavy ships. We'll fire that. You can actually see that blue laser just sparks off, as well as that sound that's just really beefy. It just really feels good to fire. So let's fire 1 more shot and let it reload. That reloading time's ticking away here, so you might want to have these go off in some sort of volley from the side of a ship. Could be even more amazing. And we'll fire it again. And there goes that laser off at that very sort of supersonic speed. And this is damn right than a killer ship. Maybe not one singular one, but in enough sort of force could work very well. Now the next weapon we're having a look at is by a name that I find quite hard to pronounce, Akunja. I do hope I pronounced that correctly. And it is basically a small ship sniper rifle converted into a turret form. Now this comes in 2 rather useful packages. It comes in an AI controlled one, and as we know, them sniper rifles can be extremely dangerous. It also comes as a manually controlled one. We've got the caliber of rounds here at the back, the 2 stripes being the super powerful round, the 1 stripe being the light powered round. I'm just going to fire this at the target to show you. Not going to show you too much, but as we can see here, we're going to sit on this and we're going to actually access the turret through the menu. So we're looking for a large sniper turret. It's a large ship sniper turret. There we go. I'll hit control. And you see we've got control now. Just fire 1 off into the sky. You can hear this loud sort of undertone thud. Let you hear it again. And then we've also got it like going out like a laser beam as well at quite a slow rate of fire, or sort of slow beam you could say. So let's fire at the target. There we go. That we've got them tiny small penetration holes that the sniper rifle's good for. It's penetrating deep into the target without causing too much damage to the exterior, so it could be good for breaking into layers such as the engine bay and just picking a hole in that small part. And there we go. Let's move on to the next weapon. Now the next weapon we're actually going to have a look at comes from a pack that is in early stages of development, and it is an antimatter sort of PvP pack, and it fires these massive, really powerful missiles that I'll show you in a minute. Now this is done by Rocket 2 Guns. It's a pretty nice little pack he's built here, and I'll show you how he's built it. Now he's got the missiles traveling at a very slow speed, so the big power can be deleted basically by someone intercepting and shooting down that missile before it reaches their target. Now let's quickly add that onto the list of weapons. So torpedo launcher, drop it down to the bottom, see the lasers lit up. We're going to fire this thing, just watch the speed, rather slow. When it impacts, you get this big cratered effect, a lot of high damage and a large blast over an area. Now these are 5 block thick layers of armor, and that's made a large blast as well as penetrating what looks to be 3 layers of armor itself. Very nice, very effective. Let's pop that off and have a look at it against the heavier armored sort of package. We'll head back, we'll launch another one. Now I do like these much slower traveling missiles because on a larger ship you're going to see these travel across and they're going to look really cool. So we're going to fire another one of the antimatter torpedoes, watch it in behind, and it's hit the heavy armor, and it seems to have done pretty much the exact same damage to the heavy armor target. Very nice indeed. Now let's move on to the details behind the system. Now they've really thought about what's actually happening with this weapon and how much power it's going to create, and this little generator here on the back is used to create the antimatter that you need to actually build and fire these weapons. Just a nice idea, and it's actually equaling itself out, so it's making the weapon more difficult, more challenging to build than just whacking these easy to build torpedoes in there, sending them off and killing people rather easily. Let's move on and have a look at the next weapon system. Now we're heading on to a series of laser weaponry that I have to say are quite remarkable, and they're hidden here within this shell of a thruster. Now this weapon itself, or these weapons you could say, are designed by AAA Gamer, and he's paid quite attention to detail from the Star Trek series of movies and films when it comes to building these weapons. So we've got two smaller thrusters as well as a larger one over there. I'm going to show you this one first. Now first up, if we hit one, we're actually going to power up the weapon. You can see the dot on target, and we've got these rapid fire sort of disruptor weapons. So we can see we're rapid fired there, and we're firing off into the distance. Once again, a long range weapon, and it means that it can be used to target other large ships quite effectively. The only problem is how you're going to balance weapons like this that have such a high rate of fire and a high damage. Are you going to cut the power? Are you going to do something just to balance them and make them harder to use perhaps? So once again, we've got a different type of phaser. We've got one with a higher rate of fire. This is the, I believe, rapid fire sort of design. Now, if we have a look at the lower caliber phasers, you can see that we've got quite a tight sort of tunneling effect through the target. And in the heavy armor, we've got even a smaller penetration line. You can see that we cut through, but we've done a very small, probably insignificant amount of damage, but we've still penetrated inside and damaged whatever would be inside that ship. So that's rather interesting to have a look at. Now if I peel this layer back, we're also going to see what the large phaser did to both of the targets. Now as you can see, it's ripped a much larger hole through the light armor, and it's ripped an even larger one through the heavy armor, and that's because this large phaser tends to have a lot of sort of spread as it's throwing the actual rounds out. It throws them out left and right, and I'll show you that once again. So now we're moving on to the large phaser, probably the most powerful of them all. Now I've already fired a little bit of this target just to show you before, and I'm going to get on this once again, and we're going to fire this bad boy right up. Now what I want you to notice about this phaser design is it seems that every now and then it seems to be spraying the rounds in a little bit of a circular motion. That means that you're actually spreading the damage out around an area, and as I showed you on the target, it means that it's going to have a much larger area of damage, but at the same time be a little bit more inaccurate. Now let's hop off this thing and have a look at the next weapon. Now for some time I have been looking for a rather nice sort of laser Gatling turret design. Now this is a reshaped, sort of retextured model of the original Gatling gun from what I can tell. That's had this feature added onto the end, and it's been designed by Migo, and I want to show you the sounds, the sort of textures is added to it, as well as something that's quite interesting, quite different to actually defend your ship. So we'll toggle the block on, and we'll let it fire away. So you've got that rotating motion, but at the same time you've got that sort of high sort of penetration as it penetrates into the target and it's trying to get itself towards them blocks. So we've got that very thin penetration line to the target. It's actually snipped in there, penetrated right through into the inside and destroyed this little crate. You can actually see the little hole that has built itself, and it's probably going to move on to the secondary target if this is not in the way. So we'll cut that out of the way. You can actually see how that is now cutting through the heavy armor, much slower, but at the same time it's trying to get itself through. So against heavy armor, this laser turret is just not that effective. So let's head back, we'll shut it off, and we'll move on to the final weapon, and then finally a number of ship mount weapons. Now the next weapon I actually want to have a look at is a form of large ship autocannon. Now I really feel there's a lack of large ship like direct weaponry that you have to point the ship to actually fire. Now the Gatling turrets are good, and the single sort of fire aiming rocket launchers are interesting, but they just don't really have sort of a depth to them, any sort of thud, something that takes time to reload. And the rocket pods, the weapons themselves are very simple to manufacture. You can produce a lot of rockets in survival sort of sense, where something like this, or the laser weaponry, is going to take a little bit longer. So let's actually fire this thing up. We'll hop into the control panel, and we'll grab ourselves the weapon if we found it, and we'll move it to our taskbar. So there's the autocannon, and what we're going to do is just select that, select the autocannon, move it to the bar, and we'll line this thing up ready to shoot. So just listen to this thing for a second. We've got that much deeper thud, and also we've got this like really inaccurate sort of fire from it. So you'll notice how it's like trying to splat all over the target. It's not really accurate, and that's what I really like. I can imagine firing this at a ship and spreading the damage out across an area, especially if that ship's moving. It's going to be even harder. So as you can see, it's patterning them areas down around the target. We'll go and actually take a look at the target in a second, just to see what it's done. Now, it's done a lot of damage, but due to its inaccuracy, you can imagine this thing struggling to hit a smaller ship, and at the same time taking it much longer to penetrate through the light armoured sort of designs of ships. So you can see we've got one hole there out of the number. We'll cut that away and we'll have a go against the heavy armour. Just bring this back over here, and we'll hop in our chair and we'll fire straight away. Into the chair we go, and fire this thing. There we go. You can see that we're not doing too much damage at all against the heavier sort of armour, and most of the shells are actually flying off and missing the armoured target completely. So it seems like it's a very close range sort of weapon.